All right, it's that time of the year. MLS Cup playoffs are officially here, or they're starting on Wednesday, the play-in match. But the playoffs are what's next, and this is the most exciting time of the Major League Soccer year, at least in my opinion, because we get to see who is going to be the champion of MLS. And there's a lot of good teams, and obviously it's hard to pick just because there's 18 teams that are going to make the playoffs and a lot of uncertainties, a lot of surprises. That's what's exciting about the playoff format. I know a lot of people don't like it that aren't American, but this is one of the things that are embedded in our sports culture. And one of the most exciting things to see what pans out and who ends up winning the whole thing. So let's get into it. Let's make my full predictions for the 2025 MLS Cup playoffs. Also, let me know if you guys agree, disagree, which picks you like, dislike, all down below in the comment section. So let's start off with the Western Conference first, and we'll start off with the play-in game. I personally think that Portland is going to beat RSL. I think Portland has a better team. They're playing at home. And I think RSL's really struggled down the stretch of the season. And I have a lot of concerns for them. So I think that they are going to win their play-in match against RSL on Wednesday, and they will play San Diego FC in the first round of the playoffs. Now, San Diego FC is the best expansion team in MLS. We know what they've done with Anders Stryer. Hey, if you're enjoying the video, make sure you give it a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Our goal is to hit 12,000 subscribers by MLS Cup Final Day, which is less than 2 months away. A lot of exciting playoff games ahead of us, and we have real momentum, so I think we could hit that goal. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already and hit that little bell notification so you never miss any of our videos. Now, back to the video. Mikey Veras, Chucky Lozano hasn't been as good as we would like to see in MLS, but this team has played very, very well, especially for an expansion team. Portland has invested in the roster. I think Portland is a very, very good competitive team. And maybe if they had a different matchup in the first round other than San Diego FC, I think that they would potentially be able to upset their opponent. But San Diego FC are just a juggernaut, I think, at this point. Especially they're going to have home field advantage. Now, they have been a good road team as well, which I think hurts Portland. I think San Diego FC are going to win this series in a sweep, 2-0 in the first round. I've got San Diego FC advancing to the semifinals of the Western Conference. Now, the next matchup is Minnesota United versus Seattle Sounders. This is a very interesting matchup. Seattle Sounders and Minnesota, I think, are very it's a balanced matchup. Like, I think it could really go either way. These are two defensive-oriented teams. Now, I had Dane St. Clair as my goalkeeper of the year. I think he is a vital, very important piece of why Minnesota United has been so good this year. And also, Eric Ramsey's a very good manager. I don't know how much longer he's going to be in Major League Soccer, but Minnesota United also had stalled towards the end of the season. Seattle Sounders, we know what they've done. They were in the Club World Cup. They won Leagues Cup. I still have concerns about Seattle Sounders as far as their attack. There's some players that need to step up. Now, Pedro de la Vega is injured. He will not play the rest of the season, another knee injury. So that's concerning a little bit. But I think if Seattle Sounders had a better striker other than Jordan Morris, that they would be a serious contender. This is tough. This is really, really tough one for me. I would think I'm going to lean towards Seattle, though, just because the experience they have, even though they're going to have to win a game on the road, possibly 2 games on the road. I have Seattle Sounders beating Minnesota United in the first round, and I think it's going to go 3 games, though. I don't think it's going to be a sweep for either team. I think this is going to go 3 games, and there's going to be a high stakes third match, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Like I said, this is a really good matchup. These teams are very, very similar. I still think I'm going to go Seattle Sounders, and we'll see what some of the key players like Albert Rusnak and obviously Christian Roldan has had a great season. Young player Obed Vargas. We'll see what these guys can do to help this experienced Seattle team push forward. But I've got Seattle advancing to the next round. Now, the next matchup we have is LAFC versus Austin. Now, LAFC have been arguably the hottest team in Major League Soccer since Son Heung-min came to LAFC. He has helped this team score, I think it was like 20 goals in 6 matches, which is incredible. Him and Denny Bwanga's chemistry is undeniable, and what they've done has probably, boasted the best tandem in MLS, right? They've been damn near unstoppable in the MLS, the final half of the MLS season. Austin FC's injured. I don't think they're quite there yet. I don't trust Nico Estevez as a manager. Obviously, Brandon Vasquez got hurt earlier in the season. That was their big time signing up the top as a striker. He's not playing. Owen Wolf has been really good this year too. He's emerged, but I just don't think they have what it takes or the horses to win this race. And I think LAFC are going to sweep Austin FC in the first round of the playoffs. I think they're going to win both matches and cruise by to the semifinals of the Western Conference. And then we have Vancouver and Dallas. Vancouver and Dallas played an decision day, excuse me. They played on decision day. Vancouver did not look good against Dallas, especially with a high stakes match. They needed to win that game in order to finish first place in the Western Conference, and they choked it away. There's some concerns I have about Vancouver, but Dallas hasn't really been the same. They sold Lucho Acosta. He was supposed to be a big deal. Peter Musa has been hurt. I just don't know I don't think Dallas is good enough to beat Vancouver, and I think Vancouver, Jesper Sorensen is better than Eric Quill as a manager. I don't even think it's close. So I think Vancouver is probably going to sweep. They're going to sweep Dallas in the first round of the MLS Western Conference first round. Now moving over to the East, we have Chicago and Orlando in the play-in match. I think Chicago is going to win this match. Chicago has been inconsistent, but they've been playing better down the stretch. And Greg Berhalter, to his credit, has given them some stability, which a lot of people probably never would have guessed, but he has. I mean, he's helped bring some confidence to this team, and they made the playoffs for the first time since 2017 and the second time since 2010. So they deserve a lot of credit. I think Orlando City is kind of spiraling. They got smoked by Toronto FC in decision day. They lost like 4-2. A lot of concerns for Oscar Pereira. I think Philadelphia will win, I think Chicago will beat Orlando in the play-in match. But this is where it gets a little interesting. Chicago and Philadelphia in the first round. This one could go either way. Philadelphia won the Supporters Shield, Major League Soccer, and they had a great season under Bradley Carnell. But the problem is they lack star power. They don't have a superstar on this team who can take over the match and who can put the team on his back if no one else is playing. It's a collective team effort. Yes, they have Jay Beglesnes, who I think is Defender of the Year. Andre Blake, maybe the best goalkeeper in MLS history. Kai Wagner, one of the best fullbacks in MLS. Ty Baribo was in contention for the Golden Boot at one time. I just don't think they have what it takes, and I think this is going to be my first upset. I think Chicago is going to beat Philadelphia in the first round of the Eastern Conference playoffs. Now, moving on to the next matchup, we have Charlotte FC and New York City FC. This is another good matchup. Two very good teams, two very good coach teams. Charlotte FC, coached by Dean Smith, great manager, defensive-minded. Last year conceded the least amount of goals in the Eastern Conference. Not as good this year, but I think that this team, now Zaha is going to miss the first match due to a red card he got on decision day, but I think towards the end that they played a little bit better, and they had that streak where they might have been the best team in the league at one point. Pep Biel was very good in the beginning of the season. We'll see if what he's able to do down the stretch of in the playoffs. And then they have Kalina. He's been a little shaky this year compared to last year where he was the goalkeeper of the year, but I think Charlotte FC is they're the dark horse, I would think, of the Eastern Conference. Like, I could see them, and it sounds funny because they're the fourth seed team, but I don't know if anyone's predicting them to win. I think Charlotte FC really could do some damage. New York City FC, I still think that they're missing a key piece. They sold Santiago Rodriguez to Botafogo. They brought in Nico Fernandez from Elche this summer. I'm still not sure how good he is. I don't know if he's any better than Santiago Rodriguez. A lot of uncertainty with this team. I don't think they're quite there yet. Now, Pascal Jansen was a great manager. I think he did a very good job this year. Way better upgrade over Nick Cushing and his shortcomings as a manager. So I think this is going to be a very, very competitive series. I still think Charlotte's going to be the favorite, and I think it's going to be a 3-game series where Charlotte wins 2-1. Very, very good series. Then we have Miami and Nashville. Another matchup that we are going to see possibly 4 times in a row. Miami played Nashville on decision day and absolutely dominated them. It was 5-2. Messi had a hat trick. He had an assist. Absolutely dominated. Nashville is a very well coached team under BJ Callahan, but I still think Miami has the edge because Messi is Messi. Now, Messi has to be perfect on this team because the supporting cast has been lackluster in 2025, and Javier Mascherano is not a good manager at this point in his career, but Messi is Messi. We saw what he did on the road. One of the concerns I had about Miami is can they win on the road? Can they win on the road in these big playoff matches? We watched them go to Nashville on decision day where they did have something to play for because they could have been as high as the second seed, and they just absolutely smacked Nashville. They didn't look very good in the beginning, but when they hit their stride, they just absolutely, it wasn't even close. It wasn't even close. And I like Nashville. I think Hani Mukhtar, obviously club legend. Sam Surridge has been incredible. It's been impressive to see what he's been able to do this year under BJ Callahan in his first full season. He scored 24 goals. He had an incredible season for Nashville SC. I still think Miami is probably going to sweep this series and beat them 2-0 and coast by to the Eastern Conference semifinals. And then we have hell is real in the first round. Cincinnati, Columbus. This is a good matchup. I mean, these two teams really, really don't like each other. Obviously, hell is real. Cincinnati's a team that's very interesting. I love their team on paper. I think defensively sound. Miles Robinson, Matt Miazga. I love Evander. I think he's one of the most underrated players in Major League Soccer. For his creativity, he's able to score. I mean, he's just an absolute monster. And then I think Kevin Danke was a very good signing. He was my favorite striker signing in MLS in 2025. I liked him over Emmanuel Latte-Lot, and I wish Atlanta United had spent a little bit more wisely like Cincinnati had done. But when you have a rivalry like this, anything can happen. Now, Columbus has struggled under Wilfried Nancy in 2025, but that's because they played half their season without a striker or replacement for Cucho Hernandez. But they signed Ali from Al Ali, the Palestinian international, who's had a pretty decent season. He's just hurt. He's been pretty good. I still have some reservations about Columbus. I just think that they're not a full team. Like, I still think they have a couple additions that they need to make to be back to what they were a year or two ago. Now, they did trade for Daniel Gazdak, who might have been Philadelphia's best player for several years. I still don't think this team is just there yet. There's still something missing about this team. So I have Cincinnati advancing over Columbus. It's going to be a close series, though. I think it's going to be 2-1. I think it's going to go 3 games. But I got Cincinnati advancing to play Inter Miami in the semifinals of the Eastern Conference. Now, here we are in the semifinals. A lot of good matchups. A lot of good matchups. We'll start off with the Western Conference, San Diego versus the Seattle Sounders. Now, this is where it's going to get tricky. Now, this is where it's single elimination. There's no more best of 2, best of 3. It's single elimination from this point forward, okay? San Diego is a very, very good team expansion-wise, but here's the downside to San Diego. They have no playoff experience. So Seattle has been battle-tested for these matches. They played in several big games this year alone, and I think that Seattle is going to beat San Diego on the road just because of their experience. Now, Seattle, like I said, one of the biggest concerns I have with them is they don't have a striker. But I do think San Diego FC is way too dependent on Anders Dreyer. And Seattle is very good defensively of frustrating players. They're very, very good at frustrating players defensively. I think Seattle is going to upset San Diego in the semifinals in advance. And, bravo to San Diego for the season they had. I mean, a lot of teams historically, expansion teams don't even make it to the playoffs. So the fact you make it to the semifinals would be very, very impressive. I've got Seattle because they're battle tested and they've been here. Now, this is probably the best series in the entire playoffs. LAFC versus Vancouver. And it's funny because a lot of people were tired of this series because Vancouver and LAFC have played so many times in the last couple of years. But this is the most excited I've ever been to watch this. We get to see LAFC, Son Heung-min, Denis Bouanga versus Thomas Müller, Brian White, Ryan Gauld. So many good players facing off against each other, and one of the best semifinal games we've probably ever seen. These are two teams that many people could see going to the MLS Cup final. I think LAFC are going to win this match, and it's going to be very, very close. But when you have two of the top 6 players in the league on your roster, I'm going to give you the advantage. Now, Vancouver is a tough place to play at. It really is. It really is. Now, we make jokes about the carpet that they have. They call a pitch, but LAFC is just different. Like, they can score in so many ways with Son Heung-min and Denny Bwanga, and they can score so much. Like, we saw a 3 or 4 game stretch where they had a hat trick in a row. Like, that's unheard of in MLS. I'm going to give the slight edge to LAFC, but I think it's going to be a historic match, and I've got Seattle taking LAFC on in the Western Conference Final. Now, semifinals, Chicago versus Charlotte FC. I think Charlotte FC is going to win this match over Chicago just because I think that their team is just deeper at this point. I think they're further in the process, and I think that they have a better player. Chicago has some great players. Zinkernagel is very good. He's a very good player. He's been probably the steal of the offseason in MLS because no one knew who he was. He's been balling out. But I still am going to trust Zaha, Pep Biel, Dean Smith, Kalina. Like, I just think that this team is just ready to compete. And I think they're going to beat Chicago. And Chicago deserves a lot of credit because if they win their play-in game, they knock off the first team in the Eastern Conference, and they make it to the semifinal. That's a hell of a season. But I'm going to give the edge to Charlotte, and I think they're going to make it to the Eastern Conference final. I think they've been ready for a while, and I think this is their year. Now, Miami versus Cincinnati. Miami versus Cincinnati is going to be an interesting matchup. Cincinnati has struggled with Miami a lot in recent memory, but this is tough. Now, it's going to be at Cincinnati. I don't know if I trust Miami necessarily on the road in a game like this, but when you have Lionel Messi, I think you have a chance. Now, look, Cincinnati is very good. I just said earlier, Evander, Danke, Miazga, Miles Robinson. These guys are good. These guys are good. I just think that when it comes down to your best player versus their best player, who's going to have the better duel? Evander versus Messi. And I think they're going to win this by a slim margin. I'm not saying Miami's going to smoke Cincinnati. Like, I think it's going to be a crazy close game. I just don't trust Pat Noonan. And I don't trust Javier Mascherano either. Don't get it twisted. I don't trust him either. I just trust Pat Noonan less because the teams he's had in the last 2 years, he just hasn't really been able to do anything with them like he should. I just don't know. I think Pat Noonan has hit his ceiling. I just trust Messi to make the plays to get them there over Pat Noonan and Evander at this point. But it's going to be a great game. So we're down to the conference finals. We have Seattle Sounders versus LAFC. It's Charlotte FC versus Miami. All right, starting off with the Western Conference. If you followed me and you've listened to what I've said, the biggest thing about Seattle of why I don't consider them to be a true MLS Cup contender to win it all is because they don't have a striker. They've relied too heavily on Danny Musovski. Jordan Morris has been hurt. They just don't have that striker that we're used to seeing them have when they won MLS Cup. The Raul Ruiz-Diaz, Clint Dempsey, Obafemi Martins was sold, but still, we're used to seeing them have a top-end striker, and they don't have that. They don't have that. And I said LAFC have got Son Heung-min and Denny Bwanga, and yes, they have Steve Cherundolo, who I don't trust as a manager, but I think LAFC have what it takes, and their attack is just so potent, it's so lethal, that they are going to win this match and make it to the MLS Cup final, which I don't think a lot of people would have thought at one point, but Son Heung-min has just completely revitalized this team. Now, the Eastern Conference final, Charlotte FC versus Miami. Game is at Chase Stadium. Messi is incredible. He's going to be MVP of the 2025 season. This team has exceeded my expectations as far as when they had a bad spell that they would even be able to make it this far, because Javier Mascherano is a disaster. And they win in spite of him, not because of him. They have some great players like Silvetti, Baltasar Rodriguez. Rodrigo De Paul hasn't been nearly as good as he should be. Yannick Bright has been pretty good, but he's not playing anymore because they're starting Rodrigo De Paul next to Sergio Busquets. But their back line is just so suspect and bad. I cannot put faith into Inter Miami's backline. I can't. I can't. And I think Charlotte FC do a very good job of countering Inter Miami. And I think Dean Smith is a better manager than Javier Mascherano. I think Charlotte FC are going to upset Inter Miami in the Eastern Conference Final and make it to their first ever MLS Cup final, beating Lionel Messi and taking on LAFC in the MLS Cup final. And I'll say this real quick about Inter Miami. They need to get younger and ditch some of these older guys and build around Messi. Then they would be a serious contender to win MLS Cup to make it there. But until they do that, I just don't see it. Last year, they lost to Atlanta United in the first round with a better team than they have this year. The 2024 Inter Miami team was better than the 2025 Inter Miami team. So I think that's going to be their undoing, and they will not make it to the MLS Cup final. All right, LAFC versus Charlotte FC. LAFC will be hosting this MLS Cup final. This is going to be a very, very, very good game, in my opinion. And I think it's going to be not high scoring like many people would expect, because I said earlier about Son Heung-min and Denny Bouanga's scoring ability for LAFC. I think Dean Smith's a better coach than Steve Cherundolo, and that's why it's going to be a real challenge for LAFC. And I think it's going to be a very close game. I don't think it's going to be some 3-0, 4-1 blowout. But I do think LAFC are going to win, and it comes down to them having the better players. They have two of the top 6 players in the league, maybe arguably the best player in the league in Son Heung-min at this point, arguably the best player in the league. And when you have that, you have to take that advantage. Like, you have to say that gives you a leg up when you're playing in the final and you're playing against a team who your second best player, Denny Bouanga, would be their best player on Charlotte FC. I've got LAFC winning it all in 2025. I've got 2 LA teams winning it back-to-back years. And I think LAFC are going to be the 2025 MLS Cup winners. And it's thanks to Son Heung-min and Denny Bouanga. You guys let me know. What do you think about my picks? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know who you guys think are going to win MLS Cup in 2025. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And hit that little bell notification so you never miss a video. And until next time, guys, I will see you all soon.